Hi everyone, Julia here from The Art of Creating, and today I'm back again on the Crafty Maven Getaway channel with the Free Flow Wednesday. Here's a look at the inspiration piece for this week, and I have decided to not only take the colors from the inspiration piece but also the layout as well. So I thought it would be fun for a change to do a grid layout, and I have tried to stick closely to the way the grid was laid out on the inspiration piece. So as you saw from the picture there, it had six sections on the page. So the top left was a floral sort of a image with I think it was a rose or something like that. So I have taken a scrap piece of this rose paper, and I'm just going to cut that into a rectangle and use that on the top left. And on the top right, it was a selection of strips in a kind of an ombre look with just a few shades of pinky coral strips, and then with a really dark grey on the bottom. So I have selected papers in advance from an old Studio Calico kit, and I'm just using a few of those papers. They're basically just scraps. There's not a lot of papers left in this collection, so you can see I'm just using scrap pieces here. On the right hand side, I've just got a few different shades of pink, going from the lighter to the darker to the red wood grain type pattern, and then a stone pattern dark grey paper at the bottom of that cluster of strips. On the left hand side, I am using a photo, and that kind of replaces the image of a bedroom in the inspiration piece. And you will also see I actually do a bit of stamping on the photo in kind of the same spot as the writing on the wall in the inspiration piece. On the right hand side, I wanted to use the grey tones like in the inspiration picture, and on there it had a few arrow type patterns, but I didn't have quite what I was looking for, so I'm just going to use some various grey patterns that I have. There is a strip of pink chevron paper just for a bit of a contrast, and then also a strip of I think it was a branding strip or an offcut from another paper, I can't quite remember, but that's pretty much all I have left from that paper, so I'm going to use that and layer it over the pinky paper in that cluster. Then I am taking this blue floral paper and putting it on the bottom left of the page. And towards the right of that, I am just using a plain grey cardstock and layering a leftover piece of a teal paper just over the top of it. I'm not particularly careful about the sizing of the papers and the layout. I just wanted them to look a little bit random, add a bit of a movement to the page so that it's not completely same size going across the page and top to the bottom. So you can see I have laid out the base of my page. I'm just adding a few little bits and pieces here. I've added an offcut of the branding strip from one of the papers, and I'm just going to put that at the bottom of the grey papers. And if you have a look at the inspiration piece, the bottom right picture had a lounge with a wall full of photo frames behind it, and I'm just replicating that with a couple of frames in the bottom right corner. I'm picking out some of the embellishments that I can use on the page, and most of these are from an old crate paper collection. I think most of these are from their Valentine's collection from a couple of years ago. There could be a couple of other things as well, but I can't quite remember because once I finish using the collection, I just keep all the leftovers and put them into the same container. I find that crepe paper collections are very similar and they go together. That's why I keep all the embellishments together in one container. I'm using another strip of that dark stone grey paper and using it as an anchor for my title at the top left. And for the title, I am using the chipboard letter stickers. They kind of have a slight pink pattern on top of them, and it's a really nice subtle look and a really nice font. These letters are quite easy to use and they're not overpowering on the page. So what I've decided to do now is glue down most of my paper elements, glue them onto the page so that I can sew through them with my sewing machine. I'm not putting a lot of glue on them. I'm just putting a little bit in the middle to hold the paper pieces in place so that when I go over it with my sewing machine, it's not going to get a lot of glue on the needle. I'm leaving out most of the large pieces because I don't want to have to sew through the actual letters and through the chipboard frames, even though I have seen people sew through the letters and things like that. But I just find with my sewing machine, once I try to go through thicker layers of paper, it then starts to struggle and it sort of starts bringing the stitches closer together and doesn't move the paper through quite as easily. So I just didn't want to make it work too hard, and just trying to keep my layers to the minimum and not putting too bulky embellishments on the page before the stitching, just to make my life a bit easier. I'm not going to show you all of the stitching on the camera because it was quite time consuming and not really that interesting to see, because you only see the like the view from the top and you can't really see anything there. But in the close-up shots you will see detailed pictures of the stitching itself, so you can see it a little bit better at the end of the video. And I will also put pictures of the stitching and I guess the close-up shots of the page on my blog as well. So check out the description box below. It will have links to all of my social media as well as Crafty Maven Getaway social media. So you can check out my blog post and see more detailed shots of this page. So I've done some zigzag stitch and also straight stitch, and I try to keep it a little bit messy just so that I don't have to stress out about trying to make everything straight and neat. That way I can just make it messy and not worry about it, and it will look right. Once all the stitching was finished, I have taken and cut off the loose threads. Sometimes I'll leave them on the page to add a bit of texture and movement, but in this case there was a lot of it, so I just wanted to make it a little bit neater, and I have cut off all of those excess threads. And at the back of the page I have sticky taped where the threads come out, just to make sure that they don't unravel. So once all that was done, I am starting to add my embellishments and gluing everything down. So I've added my title, and the two words are staggered a little bit, just so that it's not all in one line, to make it look a little bit more interesting. On the right hand side, I'm not doing too much to the cluster of the strips, as I feel it's got enough in the different color and the stitching over all of those strips, so that I only just added a couple of little hearts and a little word strip or word sentiment to add a bit of something to the top right corner. Then I'm going to add some more of those embellishments. So Because the embellishments are from a Valentine's collection, a lot of them have sentiments and words and things that are Valentine's themed. So that wasn't really relevant to my page, as the page is not about Valentine's Day. The page was from my holiday trip to Melbourne last year. So the picture is actually of just I can't remember what it was. It's a river or something in the city, and I just took a nice shot. And actually the only reason I picked out that photo was because I wanted to use that little chipboard sticker, which you can see on the right hand side. It says big city, and I just wanted to use it. So I found that photo and printed it out, and that's why it's there. So like I was saying, the Valentine's embellishments don't need to be Valentine's themed, and I have taken some little tiny word stickers from my various collections in the past. I've got quite a few that I've accumulated, and I can't remember where they were all from, but I've just picked out the colors and the words that matched my page, and I've just stuck them right over the spaces that I didn't want to show. And the good thing with these embellishments is that my tiny word stickers were the same width as the words that were printed on the embellishments, so that they covered it up quite nicely. And I could even line up a couple of different ones next to each other to make a word or make something that makes more sense and it's not Valentine's themed. So the bottom two chipboard frames, one I have glued down directly onto the page, and another one I have lifted with some pop dots. And I'm layering a couple of those banners as well, which of course also are Valentine's themed. And I have taken another word strip and stuck it right over. Now I'm just fussing around with the placement of it, because I've cut off that end fishtail from the right hand side. I couldn't work out exactly where I wanted it, but I think it looks good where it is now, so I'm just going to leave it as is. I'm going to find a spot for these pair of glasses. I think they may be also crate paper. I got them from the same box where I keep all of the crate paper stuff, so I'm just going to put a couple of pop dots underneath them as well to lift it off the page, and just going to put it in the empty space on the bottom left corner of the page. Adding a bit of bling, so a few silver metallic-y stars, a strip of their kind of enamel dot looking metallic button type things as well on the just above the title there. Also a couple of they're kind of orangey sparkly gem type things. And one of the final touches is stamping. So this may be a Craft stamp set, I'm not 100% sure, but it's got a few words and sentiments there, and the one that I'm using is the word highlights. So I'm using it with Brilliant's silver ink, which is really good for stamping on photos. The gold and the white are probably my most favorite inks to use on stamping directly onto the photo. You just got to make sure that you don't stamp it onto the light areas, because you won't be able to see it there, but in the darker areas of the photo it looks really nice. Washi tape on the middle section towards the right there. I just wanted to fill in some of that white empty space that I have created. So I'm just using this light checkered washi, which I have torn the top off, and I'm just going to layer it behind the grey paper. And that wasn't quite enough for me. I wanted to fill the space a little bit more. It was just a bit awkward in there. I tried to put some vellum arrows, but that didn't give me quite enough contrast quite enough of something to fill in that space. So I found this error from that same crepe paper box that I keep my embellishments in, and that was just the right size and the right color to fill in that space, and that's where I'm going to leave the page, I believe. Just going to write some journaling, basically where and when, and the page is done. Thanks for watching. Here is some close-ups, and you can also check out my blog for some more details. If you haven't subscribed to my channel yet, all the links will be in the description box below. Thanks for joining me today, and I will see you next time. See you later. Bye.